My cat is over there chewing loudly. So, yay. Hey guys, it's Super Kozak and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So don't hate me. I've been having trouble putting together, compiling, editing all the footage from my travel. So I'm gonna have to divide it into 2 or 3 parts. So what you're watching right now is the first of however many parts my travel vlog is gonna be. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Kozak. I'm an aspiring author. I upload writing vlogs and other random writing related videos, and I'd like to say welcome to my channel. Alright, I'm not gonna beat around the bush anymore. I'd like to finally announce to you guys where I went on my mysterious trip. So in July, I spent 3 weeks in beautiful Kiev, Ukraine. Today I'm wearing a traditional vyshyvanka in honor of my trip. It is a traditional hand-embroidered shirt. Different regions of Ukraine have different colors and patterns that they use. I can't tell you about this pattern because I didn't do that much research into it. I just really wanted a vyshyvanka, so I bought one from a street vendor. Just so you know, the 2 clues from my last video were this trident necklace, the national symbol of Ukraine, and then my ever-present guitar case, which is supposed to be a matryoshka in the Ukrainian style. And you can see that she's got a vyshyvanka with the embroidery. So first off, I just want to say that going to Kiev was one of the coolest experiences of my life. I haven't mentioned this on my channel before, but I actually have Ukrainian and Polish heritage, so those 2 countries are very near and dear to my heart. I also have studied Russian, both on my own and in the university, for almost 10 years now. It has been a dream of mine to visit Ukraine ever since I was around 15 or 16 years old, so this was a really big deal for me to be able to finally do this. And by the way, the second foreign language that I'm thinking of starting to study is, of course, Ukrainian. I'm also considering Polish, but I just feel more drawn to Ukrainian since I just barely spent time there and got to enjoy the beautiful and unique sound of the language. Now, if you're wondering how on earth I pulled off a 3-week trip to Europe, I actually did it through my work. I didn't pay for anything. My work sent me as sort of a study abroad to help me in my role as a linguist. So during the day, me and my coworker would take Russian lessons, and then in the afternoon and evenings, we would go sightseeing. Today, in the first part of my travel vlog, I would like to share with you the first 5 days of that trip. So the next clip you're going to see is just a collection of photos and videos I took from those 5 days, and there'll be short little captions to tell you where each day was spent. And then after that clip is over, I'll come back on and kind of explain each place that we went to. Also at the end, I would love to tell you guys some of my thoughts on why it's so important as writers to try to get out there in the world and travel and experience new places, new cultures, and meet new people. Enjoy the clip.
Мисяць на небі, зелененькім, тихо по морю човен пливе. В човні дівчина пісню співає, а козак чує серденько.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip. Sorry for my shaky hand in the different video clips. I'm not really much of a vlogger, so I didn't realize that my hand shakes that much when I try to film. So I hope it gets better as the clips progress in the next vlogs I do, but I do apologize for that. So for this next part, as I discuss kind of where we went each day, I'm gonna reference my little journal where I kind of recorded what we did each day. So if I glance down at any point, it's because I'm looking at my journal. So don't hate on me. So on the first full day that we spent in Kiev, after class, we got out kind of late, so a lot of the attractions were already closed for the day. We ended up deciding to go to the Maidan, which is the central square of Kiev. Now, you might have heard of the Maidan in the news because in 2014, the Revolution of Dignity took place there, where the Ukrainian people gathered there to take a stand against their corrupt government and police beating students that had been there to protest Ukraine backing out of a deal with the European Union. I didn't know the full extent of how important that revolution is to the Ukrainian people until I was there in Kiev. You can literally, just on any street, just see references and memorials to the victims and heroes of that revolution. It's already been 4 years since then, but it's still just such a critical part of their current political identity. Besides that, the square is beautiful. You saw that in the clips, the beautiful architecture, statues, and I mean, I can only describe it, but the atmosphere there just felt amazing. There were vendors selling things, there were students and young people just hanging out together. It was just a really cool place. I feel like in the US, just because of how young of a country we are and how our cities likewise are very young, we don't have well-developed spaces like that. So it was just very special to experience that. Afterwards, we walked around the grounds of the Golden Gates, Zoloty Vorota, but we didn't actually go into the museum. I'm kind of bummed about that because we never did over the course of the trip go in, but it was still cool to see the outside. I'd also like to give a quick disclaimer. Any information within this video is coming from an outsider's perspective, so some of the information might not be entirely accurate, but I'm portraying it the best way that I can. If you're interested at all in Ukraine, I would recommend doing the research yourself and possibly finding a native Ukrainian to talk to about it. I would hate to misrepresent their culture, heritage, or history, even though it's really important to me. Obviously, I don't understand everything. Sorry, I just wanted to make that clear. On the second day, we went to St. Cyril's Church. I almost said St. Sophia's, but that was not the right one. Went to St. Cyril's Church, and we actually had to take the bus. So we got bus tickets. I just love saving little things like this. I know it's such a small thing, but it's just fun to have it as a keepsake. So if you ever travel to Kiev, an important thing to know is that very rarely can you take photos inside the churches or cathedrals that you visit. So you saw in the video, a lot of times I only had the outside to show you because I couldn't take pictures inside. The downside is you don't get any pictures to take home, but the good side to that is that you really get to live in the moment and just appreciate what you're seeing. The churches and cathedrals in Kiev are all from different periods, so you really get a sense of the scope of Kiev's history when you go in each church. The styles of the different mosaics and artwork on the walls are all vastly different from church to church, so it's just very interesting to see. St. Cyril's is pretty run down, but I think they're starting to do renovation work, or at least they were when I was there. There was some scaffolding on the outside of the building and someone was working there. A lot of the artwork on the inside of the church has kind of faded or been damaged over the years, but I think they are gathering funds and donations to restore the church. Even though St. Cyril's was the smallest church we went to over the course of the trip, it was one of my favorite places just because of how quiet and out of the way it was. It's not actually one of the more common tourist attractions, so we didn't feel like we were just following the tourist foreign crowd while we were there. It was a really, really nice place to go, and I highly recommend it if you ever go to Kiev. On day 3, we tried to go to the Mariinsky Palace, but unfortunately it was closed. An important thing to know when you go to Kiev is a lot of their websites aren't translated into English, and they're very rarely updated to reflect whether or not something is closed or open on a certain day. We ran into that problem several times on the trip. So although we didn't get to walk inside the palace, the grounds were still really beautiful, and it was surrounded by a gorgeous park. One of my favorite things about the park is there was an old man just sitting and playing an accordion in the park, and it just felt so Ukrainian, you know? You would never go into a park in the US and just find somebody playing an accordion. Sure, you might find someone playing a guitar or a violin or something, you know, to try to get some change, but an accordion, I feel like, is just such a distinct part of Eastern European and Slavic culture. It was just so interesting to see that. On day 4, we went to St. Michael's Golden Domed Monastery. St. Michael's is one of the larger religious sites in Kiev, and throughout Kiev's history, even in recent history, it's played a very important role. During the Revolution of Dignity, which I mentioned, the church played a huge role with collecting supplies and relief for the people protesting on the Maidan. As far as I understand, wounded people were even taken to the church grounds to be treated. It was just so interesting to go into the monastery's museum and see all of the early history and later history, Soviet and everything. And at the very end of the exhibit, they had a new kind of presentation about the Revolution of Dignity. Like I said, there's just reminders of it everywhere in Kiev. It is so important. If you're ever in Kiev, you'll probably see posters referencing the Heavenly 100, they're called, which are the people that were actually killed during the revolution. The grounds of the monastery were absolutely gorgeous. When we stood in the bell tower, from one side we could look down the street and see another cathedral, and then we would walk over to the right to look out the adjacent side of the bell tower, and you could see another cathedral down that way. It was just crazy to me how many beautiful, gorgeous, unique cathedrals there are to see in Kiev. Just like with St. Cyril's, when we were in the actual cathedral, we weren't able to take pictures, but like I said, it was just a nice experience to forget about technology and just enjoy the moment. There were even a lot of local people coming in to worship there. The women had head covers, and people would go purchase the little candles and go light them up at the front next to the altar. Sorry if I'm describing that wrong. I'm not Orthodox, so I'm not super familiar with their religious practices. Overall, just a really beautiful experience. On day 5, my coworker and I ended up not doing anything together. I think she had something to take care of related to stuff back home, so I ended up just going off by myself to a bookstore. There was already a photograph in the video, but here are the 2 books I got. This one is about religion and the church's role in the Revolution of Dignity, which I thought would be interesting because it was quickly becoming clear to me how important this was to the Ukrainian people. This one is kind of an analysis of the current conflict going on in the eastern part of Ukraine. Besides, of course, being interested in the Russian language, I'm also interested in current events in Eastern Europe, especially between Ukraine and Russia. I didn't buy this one at the bookstore, I got it from a street vendor, but this is just Russian fairy tales. In Kiev, it's actually fairly difficult to find a large range of material in Russian. Ukrainians in recent years have become even more nationalistic than they were before, mostly due to the Russian aggression on their eastern border and in Crimea. So Ukraine as a nation has really turned to making their language more widely used than Russian, which has created some amount of political conflict with Ukrainians living in the East because they primarily speak Russian. If you enjoy world history, I highly advise looking into Ukraine's history. Alright, to close up this video, I'd like to just talk about some of the reasons it's a really good idea for writers to travel. The most obvious one, and one that I don't really need to say much about, is that travel shows you new places. Obviously, an important part of writing a story is describing the setting. Even if a place you travel to isn't a setting that you're going to use, I think it's very helpful to just see new places and get exposed to new ideas. It can kind of open up your mind and your vocabulary and your ideas to different things, and it can help you learn to describe setting better. Another great reason for writers to travel is that you can be inspired in different ways in one place than you can in another place. While I was in Ukraine talking to my teacher and other native Ukrainians, I learned things that I don't think I could have ever learned as a foreigner studying Ukraine from afar. Reading the news is one thing, but talking to somebody who lives in a place and experiences what goes on there every single day of their life and knows the culture and feels the culture, they're able to tell you things that some generic news article or history synopsis or whatever you want to call it could tell you. While I was there, I was inspired with a new novel idea that I don't think would have come to me if I hadn't gone to Ukraine. New places can inspire you in amazing ways. I think it's so valuable to every writer to be able to step out of your comfort zone and experience something new. Another way travel is very valuable for a writer is if you're trying to research for a specific setting in a book and you're able to travel to that place or a very similar place. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily mean a foreign country. If you're from the big city and you're trying to write a story about someone who lives out in the country, it would be helpful to go out in the country and enjoy the sounds and smells and feelings and people that live there. If you try to write your story completely from just research on the internet or from a book, it's hard to say that you'll really get the full feel of it. You can probably pull it off, but I think you'll feel so much closer to the story and setting if you're able to get close to it literally. Of course, I'm not criticizing writers that aren't able to travel to the settings that they're writing about. I just think it's a very useful tool to help build up and strengthen your descriptions of the setting. I personally can relate to not being able to travel because I understand how expensive it was. Like I said before, I only went on this trip because my workplace paid for it. I couldn't have afforded it otherwise. So if you're in that kind of boat, simply getting out somewhere locally and sitting down and kind of recording what you see, smell, hear, feel, etc. can help you develop your ability to describe the setting. Another way to get close to a setting that you're trying to describe is to get a pen pal from that place. For example, if I was never able to go to Ukraine, I could have gone online to any number of pen pal websites and found someone from Ukraine who was willing to tell me about their experience in their country in exchange for maybe hearing about my experience here or for help with English or whatever. There are so many ways that you can research and improve and broaden your understanding of the setting that you're describing in your story. Even science fiction or fantasy worlds are always based ultimately in reality. The fact is, your fantasy world is probably inspired by real cultures here in our world. So travel can help even you. I think that's all for this first installment of my travel vlog. Sorry once again that I wasn't able to do it all in one go. My life just didn't allow it and I had to readjust and change course and figure something out. On a related note, if any of you have an affordable, user-friendly editing program that can be used on a Windows operating system, please let me know. I have not been enjoying the two editing programs that I have tried out. They're free because I'm cheap, but I am willing to spend probably up to $50 on a program. Let me know down in the comments what you guys use and why you like it. I just really need help finding a program that's easier to use so I don't waste so much time tinkering with the videos that I'm trying to upload to this channel. I'd just like to say thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit the like button. If you're new and you want to continue seeing content from me, be sure to subscribe. I'd love to have you. Comment down below if you have an AuthorTube channel. I'd love to check it out. I love supporting other writers and cheering them on their journey. Well, I think that's it. I'll stop rambling. Happy writing. Bye.